Given that it's Pokemon's 25th anniversary this year, we have done and are going to be doing a lot of celebrating throughout the year and talking about all of the things we love about the series. But today, I thought I would have some fun and do the exact opposite by talking about the 25 worst Pokemon ever. In my own personal opinion anyway. Remember, it's okay to have opinions. I just wanted to throw that out there before you all probably eat me alive anyway. My fellow Poketuber Loxton recently counted down his worst Pokemon, which is what inspired me to share my own list, except as a top 25 in honor of the 25th anniversary. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't for more Pokemon content all the time, and with that said, let's get into it. At number 25 on this list is Deerling. Might be surprising to some of you, but Deerling has always rubbed me the wrong way. It started way back when Black and White first came out, and I saw this thing for the first time, and I immediately thought, its name is Deerling? That's such an uncreative name, I hate this thing. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on it. I feel like the name Deerling is way too on the nose for it being a baby deer Pokemon, and it just gave me a really bad first impression of this Pokemon. Plus, what makes it even worse is that this Pokemon is a grass type and is all about the seasons, so they totally could have blended the words fawn, meaning a baby deer, which is what this Pokemon is, and fauna, as in flora and fauna, as in plants and animals, which are literally the two things that come together to make this Pokemon, and that would have created a name that would have been perfect and ingenious and a million times better than Deerling. Number 24 is Pignite, and I have talked about this fat piece of bacon before. It was on my worst middle evolutions video I made forever ago, and while I was pretty harsh on it then, my negative opinion of it has actually softened up a decent amount. I don't hate the Pokemon by any means, but I do hate that they put a fat pig into a wrestling leotard with its design. Like, no one wants to see that sort of thing. So for the terrible mental image that Pignite has put into my head, it makes the list. Number 23 might surprise you because that Pokemon is Stunfisk. Now, first I want to say I'm not trying to hate on Gen 5 here. I know all the Pokemon so far have been from Unova, but that's nothing personal, and there are Pokemon from every generation on this list. It's just kinda how the early part of this list shook out. Anyway, some of you might be shocked that Stunfisk is only number 23 here, because I have mentioned on multiple occasions how much I despise this flat abomination. Like, it's a fish, but not even a water type, except that it did have the water type at one point, but that was taken away from a fish Pokemon for some garbage reason, and it's just kinda ugly, what can I say? The thing is though, I have ragged on this Pokemon so much over the years that lately I've started to feel it become kind of endearing to me. Like, I'm starting to like it because I hate it so much. Does that make any sense at all? It's kind of like Stunfisk is my lovable sidekick that I just roast all the time, and it's a really weird feeling given how much I've genuinely despised it before. Moving away from Unova for a sec, we have Primarina at number 22. Alola gave me some of my least favorite starter Pokemon ever, with Primarina being one of them. Its design just looks so awkward and messy to me, for a lack of a better term, which is really weird because its intention is that it's majestic and beautiful, but it does not come off that way to me at all. It just feels like kind of a clunky sort of design to me, especially for a starter, which is probably a big reason why I'm judging it so harshly in the first place, but nevertheless, it is amongst my least favorites. Here's another one of those Pokemon that I had a terrible first impression of that never really left me. I have secretly not enjoyed Chingling at all ever since it first came out. I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, what the genuine heck is that thing? Its name also didn't come off to me as great either. Don't ask me why I gravitate towards the name so much, but I think it's important that they flow well and roll off the tongue, and Chingling just doesn't do it for me. It also doesn't resemble Chimecho, its evolution, at all, which is a travesty because Chimecho is already really cute, so a baby form of it that actually looked like it could have been so adorable, and probably the biggest offender of all, I have never been able to make any sense of this thing's face. I have always thought that its cheek holes were its eyes, which made it look even weirder and less like Chimecho, which only exacerbated the problem, and now, even though I know where its actual eyes are, I can't unsee it. So again, it's just another case of a bad first impression completely ruining a Pokemon for me. Speaking of starter Pokemon, since we just mentioned Primarina, cracking the top 20 are all of the final evolutions of the Galar starters, Rillaboom, Cinderace, and Inteleon. These are by far my least favorite trio of starters in terms of the final forms, because I genuinely don't like a single one of them. Rillaboom isn't bad, it's just incredibly basic looking, especially for a starter. Cinderace pulls off the soccer player look in the most basic and uncreative way possible, and Inteleon is just way too spindly, skinny, and humanoid looking, and just overall really creepy. What makes these three worse in my opinion though is that they evolved from some of the best first stage starter Pokemon ever. Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble are an amazing trio and are all awesome starter Pokemon. So to go from that to this is just a travesty that I cannot forgive. Another Galar Pokemon I don't like is Grimmsnarl, and I've talked about it before, but Grimmsnarl looks the least like an actual Pokemon as almost any other Pokemon out there. Obviously, anything can be a Pokemon, but Pokemon also have an inherent quality to them that gives them that unique Pokemon flavor, which sets them apart from other RPG monsters, and to me, Grimmsnarl is seriously lacking in that category. Not to mention, it's not the easiest on the eyes either, which is the intention, I guess, but even still, I just don't vibe with Grimmsnarl. Up to this point, we have largely been talking about Pokemon that I have a strong dislike for in one way or another, but these next few fit the definition of worst Pokemon a little more closely, and the first of those is Beartic. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of Beartic, but regardless of my own opinion, it is just not a very well designed Pokemon. Its design is literally just a polar bear with an icicle beard. There is nothing at all going on to distinguish it from the animal that it's based on, and in my opinion, that is just poor designsmanship. You can't give us amazingly creative Pokemon like, say, Donphan for instance, who is an elephant but also is a tire somehow, and somehow blends those two things together flawlessly, and then come back with Beartic, whose claim to fame is a beard made out of ice, and that's it? What's even worse is that its pre-evolution, Cubchoo, looks great and has a unique concept going for it of it being sick, and that could have translated wonderfully into the evolution, but no, they completely abandoned that for whatever reason, so yeah, overall I just don't think Beartic is that good. Following that same trend is Sunflora. I do not hate Sunflora at all. If this was a Pokemon I dislike the most list, it probably wouldn't be here, but I can't deny that it's just a sunflower with a face, and that's pretty much it. Granted, you can say that about a lot of Pokemon, particularly in the earlier generations, but some are able to pull off being really basic better than others. It's kind of funny how that works out actually, and Sunflora just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in that department. It's nothing personal, I've just gotta call it like I see it. The biggest example of this idea of Pokemon I don't hate but can't deny are bad are Seel and Dewgong. It's one thing to just be pretty much an animal, like I was talking about with Beartic, but it's another entirely to literally have the name of the Pokemon be verbatim the animal that it is based on. Seel is a Pokemon based on a seal, and Dewgong is a Pokemon based on a dugong. It literally doesn't get any more straightforward than that. If all of the Pokemon were like this, Pikachu would be called Mouse, and Executor would be called Palm Tree, or Coconut Tree, or whatever kind of tree it is. And obviously, that would not make Pokemon very exciting at all, which is why these two are here. Getting into the top 15, we start with a Pokemon that is once again on my personal dislike list, but I also think that it's poorly executed as well. Incineroar is another Pokemon I have been vocal about my distaste for, and as I've said before, it literally looks like a Looney Tune. It is no joke what you would get if you gave Litten some of Michael's secret stuff from Space Jam, you know, the thing that makes all those aliens get buff. That's literally what Incineroar is. Its design doesn't waver from Litten at all aside from being muscular, and it just comes off as really poorly executed in my opinion. Maybe I just don't like wrestling Pokemon because I also have Pignite on this list, I don't know, but yeah, I'm just not a fan of Incineroar. Did I say that I don't like wrestling Pokemon? Well, I think that is pretty much confirmed now because the next Pokemon on this list is Hariyama. I promise I don't have anything against wrestlers specifically, but I don't know, they just rub me the wrong way in the form of a Pokemon, and in the case of Hariyama, it's because it's kind of a monstrosity. I mean, just look at its head and its ears and literally every other part of its body. It's basically just this massive, disgusting blob that looks really strange, and yes, I know it's a sumo wrestler, but I can't help but imagine that they could have made a sumo Pokemon just a little bit more appealing than this. I know Game Freak is more than capable, so I don't know what the idea was when they came up with Hariyama. From too much body to no body at all, my next selection is Cofagrigus. I personally really value the creativity in Pokemon, so as you might have been able to tell in this video, the more uncreative designs really fall flat for me, and that is very much the case with Cofagrigus. It suffers from the "it's a thing with a face" syndrome, being literally just a coffin with a face and ghostly arms sticking out from it. A coffin Pokemon is not a bad idea at all, but similar to how I was saying with Hariyama, I know there is a better way to go about it that would have been way more creative than what Cofagrigus ultimately gave us, and it adds insult to injury that its pre-evolution Yamask is pretty cool and has an awesome concept going for it. So yeah, Cofagrigus is just not my cup of tea. Speaking of Pokemon that are really not my cup of tea, next up is not Sinistea and Poltegeist. I know I had you going there with all the tea talk, but in actuality, the next Pokemon is Basculin. Now, this is another one I've discussed before as well, and the reason I genuinely do not like this Pokemon is because of its backstory. If you don't know, Basculin was created because of a perceived lack of fish Pokemon in Unova, and this is the reason why it was also given two forms. So it was literally made because they needed more fish, yet they gave it a second form to solve this problem instead of literally making it evolve and making an actual other fish Pokemon, and then they went and made that second form hardly any different to the original anyway. And that's not to mention that its design is pretty basic in general as well. Like, Unova may have needed a fish Pokemon, but if this is what you're gonna come back with, I think you might be better served just trying something else, if you know what I mean. Okay, you know, it's funny because I actually really love Gen 5. I have grown to appreciate it and admire it so much recently, so I am all for Gen 5. But if there was one reason why I may have not been the biggest fan of it in the past, it would be because of the Pokemon, which is why yet another Univamon, more specifically Sawk and Throh, take up this next spot. This is a sentiment that many people share, so I don't think I need to explain myself too much, but these guys are wearing literal clothes. That's just a really cringy thing to do to a Pokemon. It's one thing to make them appear as if they're wearing clothes, but just make it part of their anatomy, but literal clothes? Really? Yeah, it's obviously a thing that just doesn't work well, which has been said before, so let's go ahead and move on. And now we are into the top 10, and kicking off this elite list of terrible, in my opinion, Pokemon is Delphox. This is another one I have talked about before, and let me just say, I absolutely love that so many people come to its defense whenever I hate on this Pokemon. I love that people love this Pokemon. I think that is so awesome. But for me, personally, I think it's a steaming pile of its own doo-doo, if I say so myself. It is just immensely ugly and is one of the poorest executions of a design concept of all time. A magic witch fox Pokemon? That sounds freaking incredible. Delphox? The exact opposite of incredible. Its design is so ugly and clunky and just not done the way it could have been, and the fact that it's a starter Pokemon makes it even worse. It ultimately comes down to the execution for me with this Pokemon, and while, like I said, I love that some of you love it, and I know I'm going to get blasted in the comments for this anyway, I personally despise it. In my opinion, Generation 6 introduced the best set of new Pokemon that we have ever seen, even to this day, so it's kind of ironic that 2 of its Pokemon make my top 10 of worst designs, with the next one being Barbaracle. I just can't even with this Pokemon. It is literally an abomination. It looks like an inbred monster, but my favorite comparison that I often like to make with this thing is that it looks like Sid's terrifying toys from Toy Story, you know, the ones that are all made out of individual parts of other toys. Like, why does it have eyes on its hands? Why is its head a hand? I don't care how accurate to its inspiration or purposeful it might be, this thing is terrifying, and I genuinely cannot stand it. You know how I put Seel and Dewgong on this list for being named exactly after what they're based on? Yeah, well, somehow we have another example of that with Gurdurr. This time, it's what it's carrying around that it's named after, but really? You couldn't come up with any other name at all? And why is it carrying around a literal Gurdurr in the first place? I know it's a construction Pokemon, but Pokemon that are always just carrying around stuff 24/7 for no reason are most of the time terrible in my opinion, so being named after that object just makes it even worse. And I haven't even gotten into the fact that this has got to be one of the ugliest Pokemon ever. Why, for Arceus' sake, is it a clown? Why does it have a literal clown nose? Who thought this was a good idea? I am all for unrelated inspirations being blended together in a Pokemon, and maybe they have some kind of connection somewhere, but not like this. Donphan, my previous example from before, is how this is done right and why it's so cool. Gurdurr is an example of when this goes terribly wrong and should have immediately been thrown in the garbage, let alone actually make it past the design phase and into an actual Pokemon game. I just can't even fathom how that occurred, which is why Gurdurr is here. More Gen 5 Pokemon are on the way. I promise I think this generation is great, I really do, but this time we're talking about the forces of nature. I mentioned with Grimmsnarl that I thought it didn't look like a Pokemon. Well, it looks fantastic in that department compared to these guys. They are literally just men riding around on clouds, literally just genies. That's not what they're based on, that's literally what they are. Like, these designs were so not good that Game Freak literally gave them all new forms with completely different designs, very possibly because their original designs were so bad. I know I'm being harsh here as we get higher on this list, so I just want to say again that this is just my opinion, and if you love these Pokemon, that is awesome, and I think it is so cool that every Pokemon is someone's favorite. But man, oh man, I am not a fan of the forces of nature. I mentioned at the beginning that I decided to give my take on this subject after watching Loxton's video about it, and one thing him and I very much agree on is that Crabominable is a Crabomination. This thing is so ugly that I genuinely feel sorry for it. It took the ice fighting type combo, which had not been done until it came around, which is also a really cool combination, and just threw it in the trash and lit that trash can on fire. The only thing it really has going for it is that it is a literal interpretation of the Yeti crab, which I think is a cool way to go for a Pokemon, but not like this. As I have said before, I know there must have been a better way to make this idea look better than Crabominable does. I know this is not the only way that this concept could possibly look, and if it is for some reason, maybe you shouldn't have done it in the first place and tried something else instead. Just a thought, I'm just saying. And now, at last, we have reached the top 5, starting with none other than Klinklang. This Pokemon is literally just a pile of gears. It starts off as a Klink, and then just more gears are added every time it evolves, and that's it. Its face doesn't even change throughout this whole process. I am very aware, though, that there are plenty of Pokemon who do similar things who aren't on this list, but what can I say? Klinklang just pulls it off the worst of them all. Its name is even just the names of its 2 pre-evolutions mushed together, and that is one of the most uncreative type things that, as I've said, I just cannot stand. To me, it comes off as no effort being put into the mon itself, which I hate to think is the case, but I also can't rule it out with designs like this, and that is gross and I hate it, which is why Klinklang makes the top 5. Another notoriously hated Pokemon of mine is Eiscue. Why did anyone think that putting a block of ice on a penguin's head qualified as a Pokemon design? Because it most certainly does not. I get that it's a derp type of Pokemon, which it does a very good job of, but as with so many others on this list, its design is just so stinking uncreative. Even when it loses its ice head and changes forms, it's revealed to literally be just a penguin. Other than the special head, its proportions even line up with that of a real live penguin. They didn't even give it the honor of being cute or chibi or being accentuated or something. Anything that could have made it look like some sense of artistry was put into it. I know there are some people out there that like Eiscue as well, but personally I just cannot deal with designs like this. I just can't. Into the top 3, we begin with what are my new, least favorite legendary Pokemon, and the only legendaries that make this list, Glastrier and Spectrier. These, as I said, are legendary Pokemon. Legendary! And they are about the plainest, uninspired Pokemon I have ever seen in my entire life. I am aware that they do have multiple inspirations, in fact, so don't take that too literally, but my goodness, they are literally the personification of an animal, just having an elemental type slapped onto it and calling it a day. Did I mention these are legendary Pokemon? Because they're legendary! Legendary! Up until Generation 6, Ken Sugimori literally took almost sole responsibility for legendaries because they were that important, and 2 generations later, we end up with these things. These things are so vanilla that it just kills me, and that's by regular Pokemon standards. By legendary standards, they are a whole new level of disappointment, and it kills me that a ghost horse and an ice horse had to look like this. There are so many other ways that could be done and appear more creative and more inspired than these 2 do, which is why they personally irk me so much. Claiming the runner-up spot on my list is a Pokemon I have long despised, and that is Ambipom. If this list were a most ugly Pokemon list, Ambipom would definitely win along with Crabominable. Ambipom almost looks as if the designers intentionally botched every single aspect of Apom's design, just redesigned it as purposefully terrible as they could, and called it an evolution. I really hate to be harsh, guys, I really do, but dang it, I have got to say how I feel at some point, and man oh man is Ambipom not it chief. Why do its tail hands look like blown up rubber gloves, except made out of flesh and all red and swollen? Why is that a sentence that actually had to be conceived in order to accurately describe this Pokemon? If things like that can be accurately said about any Pokemon, something should probably be changed, but unfortunately for Ambipom, it wasn't changed, and we were all left with the unfortunate pleasure of having to look at it for eternity as a result. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for. The Pokemon who is, in my opinion, literally the worst Pokemon in existence. Not because I literally loathe it entirely, but because I genuinely think it is the worst Pokemon design. And that is Herdier. Herdier, Herdier, Herdier. This thing is just a dog. No, seriously, it's just a dog. This is a picture of the Yorkshire Terrier that Herdier is based on, and this is Herdier. Tell me what the difference is. You can't, because they're exactly the same. Herdier is just a dog drawn in the Pokemon art style. It has absolutely nothing creative or original going for it whatsoever. We have already covered the looks, but heck, it's even normal type. It doesn't even have a type that can give it the slightest little shred of originality. I mean, slap an electric or a fighting or even a fire type on this thing, and you have got yourself something that probably would be pretty cool, but you cannot just take an animal and put it in the Pokemon world and call it a Pokemon. They didn't even color it differently to how the actual dog is colored, for Arceus' sakes. This Pokemon was thrown to the dogs, no pun intended, in the worst way possible. How can you expect anyone to like a Pokemon if it doesn't have anything that it can call its own? Even its pre-evolution is at least cute, and its evolution is oversized and has a big mustache. But Herdier, poor, sweet Herdier is the definition of the forgotten middle child. It does not have one iota of a redeeming quality in my opinion, and that is why I think it is the worst Pokemon ever. But that is just what I think. One of the best things about Pokemon is that all of these I just mentioned are someone's favorite, and I think that's amazing. So if that is the case for you, just remember that opinions are just that, and yours are more than valid if they're different from mine. I know people are probably going to flame me in the comments anyway, but I just wanted to throw that out there. At the end of the day, this is just a friendly roast more than anything, because obviously I do love Pokemon in its entirety. And with that said, thank you all for watching. I will see you all very soon with another video, and until then, as always, I love you all, and I will smell you guys later.